And it's my great pleasure to present the last speaker for today, the last speaker for the entire conference, Andreas. Hi there. Just quickly an introduction so that you know, I mean, obviously you all have read carefully the website and everything, but still, quick introduction. Andreas Refsgaard is an artist and creative coder based in Copenhagen, known for his playful and curious approach to technology. He is, in my opinion, one of the pioneers of creative AI. For instance, he gave the first creative AI workshop here at HfG 7 years or more ago already, and taught for a long time also the creative machine learning course in our master strategic design program. His works explores the quirky and unexpected side of machine learning, inviting reflection on the role of digital tools in creative expression. Lots of cool projects we probably came across, like the Eye Conductor project, which lets users make music with eyes and facial movements. Or, for instance, he collaborated with Google with the Teachable Machine project, which I guess most of you have used in workshops. In his talk, Beyond Prompting, Silly Interactive AI, Andreas shares how humor and experimentation can reshape our creative relationship with technology. I hope this was a good introduction. Many. Okay,
it was.
Stage is yours.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Benedict, and hello, Schwäbisch Gmünd. Thanks for having me.
I think we can't hear you. 1 second.
You can't hear me? Okay.
Yeah, now we're good. Now we're good. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks so much for the introduction. You hear me now, I guess?
Yes, all good.
Great. Thanks. And hello, Schwäbisch Gmünd. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm in my kids' room, and I must warn you, I have a 4-month-old who's napping right now. My wife will grab him if he wakes up, but he's a screamer, so he goes from 0 to 100 or 20 in decibels right from the start. So yeah, but I'll try to keep my focus here. In my presentation, I will try to actually take a bit of a historical approach to some extent, like go back. Benedict mentioned 7 years ago I was at HfG, but I'll actually try to go 10 years back in time. And for each of these 10 past years, I'll show a project, and some of them are somewhat related and shows the process of how maybe I and other creatives have worked with machine learning in the past up until the present. And then there'll be one activity 1 year where you will also play a part and perhaps try a thing out. So I'll start in 2016 with a project I made, which was maybe my first project that involved machine learning, or one of the first. It's called Doodle Tunes, made in collaboration with American artist Gene Kogan. And the idea was it was at a hackathon in South Korea. And the idea was to see if we could train our own algorithm to recognize drawings of musical instruments. And then we hooked that up to a music software, enabling people to draw musical instruments, place them in front of a camera, and then have music composed based on those instruments. Let's have a look.
Just the bass, yeah.
the next year, I started a small creative coding studio in Copenhagen with a fellow Danish artist and programmer, Lasse Korsgaard. And we started exploring a lot of creative ideas and also just like messing around with the open source algorithms that were out there at the time. And 2017 was also the year where we made a Teachable Machine that for Google, which Benedict mentioned. But a project also from that year, a bit earlier, was something where we were super interested in exploring an algorithm that was already trained. And it's an algorithm that maybe some of you have tried yourself. It's something that gets updated all the time. But we experimented with this algorithm called YOLO version 2. And YOLO version 2 is trained on a lot of or was trained on a lot of data and is able to, from images, detect where certain objects are at. So it creates this bounding box around the objects. That means that in this picture, we see a lot of people, we see some books, and then we see a guess, which is incorrect, that a cell phone is placed right on top of this actor's mouth. And to be fair to YOLO, sometimes you need to be fair to algorithms. You can often make fun of them, laugh about the mistakes they make, but in this case, we actually lowered the threshold for YOLO version 2, so it would make a lot of guesses, more guesses than it normally does, and the bounding box the width of the line of the bounding box indicates how sure it is. So it's pretty sure about the people. It's pretty sure about or it's not that sure about some of the books, but it is correct. And then it's not sure about the cell phone either, which is a mistake. So we're sort of forcing it to make some mistakes. And we were really interested in the mistakes, but also sort of fascinated by the fact that it could recognize a lot of stuff and could do it extremely fast. YOLO stands for You Only Look Once, because it was an algorithm that you could run on certain computers back then in real time. And then we sort of wanted to attempt to have a look at popular culture from the perspective of an algorithm, because we anticipated that a lot of media would sort of be processed not first by human beings, but by algorithms before they were maybe served to human beings. So what we did with this little experiment was that we made 3 different videos, and I'm going to show you one of them, where we took the movie trailer for the Hollywood film, The Wolf of Wall Street, and then we kept all the objects that this algorithm was able to detect, whether they were correct or incorrect, and then all the other parts of the image we just blackened out. So what you'll see now is the beginning of the movie trailer for The Wolf of Wall Street, but only the objects that the algorithm could detect are kept. Everything else is blacked out. Let's have a look.
My name is Jordan Belfort. The year I turned 26, I made $49 million, which really pissed me off because it was 3 shy of $1 million a week. We're making a name for ourselves.
Nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles. You know what a fugazi is?
Oh, Fugazi. It's fake.
Yeah, fugazi, fugazi. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust.
And I'm sorry if over this Zoom connection it's not completely smooth, if it's a bit laggy. The original version is smooth. We ran it by frame. Okay, so now is the year 2018, and maybe this was the first year I went to HfG, more or less around that time. And this was also the first year where I started exploring what you now maybe call generative in AI. So instead of having computers interpret the world, what if they could create content that we then put back into the world? And I had an intern at the time. His name is Mikkel Typolose, and me and him wanted to sort of create some sort of shop where you could buy a product that was more or less made by a computer. Of course, there's always humans in the loop. So when we call this books by AI, it's also a way for us to sort of frame it in a certain way, to draw some attention to it, to anticipate how maybe journalists or curators could look at this project. It is not entirely by AI. I don't think anything is entirely by AI or by computers. There's always human beings that sort of decide what the concept is, decide on the algorithms, train with data. The data also comes from human beings and so on. So I call it by AI, sort of to market it, I guess. However, a lot of it is made by AI, I would still say. So it's an online bookstore that you can visit today if you feel like it, and if you're tired of books written by human beings. And all the books on this store, all the content in this book comes from algorithms that we trained ourselves. We chose it to be science fiction, so it's science fiction novels that you can buy and get shipped to yourself, to your home as printed paperbacks. It has been trained with a lot of text of existing science fiction books and descriptions of them from Project Gutenberg, and then also Amazon.com. And back then we used something called char-RNN TensorFlow, which sort of learns character by character, so way before large language models. And then for training an algorithm that could generate some book covers, we grabbed existing images of book covers from Open Library and trained a GAN model called Progressive Growing of GAN to then generate these covers. And now we have the covers, we have all the text, we have fake author names and fake descriptions, even prices, but still we wanted to sell these books. We wanted to sort of have some social proof, some people saying that these are interesting books to read. That was a bit hard to get because the books weren't that great. So we generated fake reviewers ourselves and trained a new algorithm on positive reviews of other people's book purchases. And then all of a sudden we had this army of really positive reviewers. And maybe a fun little historical sort of glitch that I really like is the review by Editor Locker, who reviews this book. What is the title of the book? It's like The Imperfect in the Disaster by Barry Wolf, one of the better ones, I would say. And the review reads, "I really enjoyed this book. It's knudung." And knudung is a mistake, or I don't know, a way of describing a book, or even like a word that you don't get unless you really want one of the current large language models to spit out really weird words that don't really exist. But back then there were no large language models, and these large language models that you use today, most of them are trained with tokens that are like small words are typically one token, and larger words are composed by multiple tokens. Back then, we trained this algorithm called char-RNN, which learns character by character. And then in the beginning, before it has been well trained, it just spits out totally random characters, sort of like a monkey just typing away at a keyboard at random. And then over time, the idea is that it will compare its outputs to outputs in the training data set, which consisted of positive reviews from Amazon, English reviews mainly. And that means that it will try to then figure out the composition, the structure, the length of words, maybe mimic the words, mimic the way words are connected to each other, and thereby it learns to write sentences in English that have a decent grammar. But if you don't train it well enough, meaning that you maybe set some parameters in the wrong way, you don't have enough training data, you don't train for the right amount of time, then you end up with some of the gibberish that came out of just these random characters. And I really like some of those mistakes, and especially this knudung description of the book. I find that that's a very accurate description of this specific book, because it's not a good book. It's also not an uninteresting book. It's a knudung book, in my opinion. Yeah, here it is. Sorry. And then now real people are buying these books, and maybe I should pause it for a second to explain, because it's a bit maybe not the most elegant way of us selling the books, but also it was a self-initiated project with no funding, and we were a bit lazy, and we also didn't really know how to maybe ship books to all parts of the world. So we found out that Amazon had this print-on-demand service, and that was really fun because a lot of the training data came from Amazon. So it was an interesting way for us to maybe have the snake bite itself in the tail, but also make a comment about or maybe even test whether Amazon would approve of AI-generated spam/art being sold. Would they accept our uploads and sell them? And yes, they would, even though it actually back then the license said that this practice was not allowed. But they made money from it, and we made a bit of money from it. Yeah, but and then it was also maybe from my perspective a comment on a trend that I tried to foresee, in the sense that that the internet would just be swarmed, over flooded with all this AI generated content. Yeah, so now the books are for sale on Amazon, and then real people are buying them, and real people are then reviewing them, which is sort of interesting. So these reviews, the one you see here and the stars to the left, they came from real purchases, I think, at least. And typically, these books get between 5 stars and 1 star. 1 star for the reading experience, which is really awful, and 5 stars maybe mainly for the concept. Yeah, so booked by AI, the books are not that great, but the fake reviews are really, really good. The fake ones, at least. Okay, so 1 year forward to 2019, where I maybe I realized that the idea of back then generating full books, maybe it was a bit more conceptually interesting than it was actually interesting as text or as poetry, because these science fiction books, honestly, they were not that great, and sometimes I got interviewed by people who asked, like, what are the books like? And my honest question was, I don't know. I've never read an entire book, because each sentence could be fine, but there was no red thread or no real consistency between the different pages. And that's something that the T in Transformer that came a bit later with which the large language models, the T was sort of able to have large language models somehow remember what happened a bit earlier, whereas with CharRNN they were character by character, and that meant that that it was not really a consistent story throughout the hundreds of pages. So I wanted to experiment still with text. I was interested in combining text with the idea of classification, image classification, and then I was interested in shorter text. And what are shorter text? That could be like extremely short poems. So what I did was that I made a little system that you could try with your mobile phone. So you could walk around town and have your camera on, and then inside it was an algorithm called MobileNet, which was a very simple image classifier that would always just guess what it is it thought it was seeing through the lens of the camera. And then you could take a picture of whatever you saw, and that picture would, the classification of that picture, whether it was banana or espresso or whatever, would get sent to Google Suggest, which is the same thing that happens if you try to search for something on a search engine. It typically, before you hit enter, it tries to anticipate what it is you search for. So like this search autocomplete, and this autocomplete sometimes actually autocompletes as though it was a poem. Like, can bananas kill you? Can bananas be frozen? Can bananas cause diabetes? Can banana trees move? Sometimes it's just one sentence that's interesting. This laptop was brought to you by capitalism, just from taking a picture of my phone. Or organ, how does organ donation work? How does organ failure feel? How does organizational structure affect leadership? All of these weird questions that I never thought of myself, just from a single photo of something that I take for granted in my environment. Okay, we'll stop here because it's being recorded. So we'll stop before the toilet seat. And then I want to show you maybe my favorite poem based on this system. It's not me, It's a student I had at the Design Academy in Eindhoven, where I gave a lot of the students some of my tools, some of my code, and then asked them to hack them, use them in unexpected ways. And this one student, he noticed that with poems or other things, I was always pointing the camera away from myself. So he started pointing the camera towards himself. He started lifting up his clothes, and then he soon realized that this model that I had been using, MobileNet, was not trained to recognize parts of human beings or even humans. Like, it had no category for human. It had categories for all types of clothing and everyday objects or plants or animals, but humans, that was not a category. So when he showed different parts of his body, very beautiful upper body in this case, it had to make its best guess. And in this case, it thought that his hairy upper body was a fur coat. And then we have this wonderful poem about a fur coat, sort of asking whether this is a real fur coat, whether it's made out of mink, worth anything, or why it's shedding, why the hairs are falling off the fur coat. And I really sort of like small glitches or small mistakes like these, because this is not an arbitrary guess. Like, it's an interesting guess because it's wrong, but it's close to being right. And I don't like, I'm not a big fan of like random noise. I don't find random noise to be that interesting, but I want something that is like well known but surprising at the same time. And this hit a sweet spot. And it didn't always hit sweet spots, my little project, but sometimes it did. And then since 2020, I've been trying to sort of improve this project, not necessarily improve it like from an artistic point of view or an aesthetic point of view, but more from a tech point of view. So kind of like what happens when you put in better algorithms that are better at detecting what happens in images, and also algorithms that can write more sophisticated lines of poetry. And I thought now I would maybe, instead of just showing it, I would demo it. And when you demo stuff, you never know what's going to happen. So this poem that I'm going to do now, it might not be that interesting, but then at least you get to see it. So let's just go here. And I'm going to show you the latest version of this that I have, where I just use an extremely simple. I just used a GPT-4o, where one model can interpret what happens in an image, and then the same model can actually write some poetry. So let's try it out, and maybe it should see a bit more of my my kid's room and not just me. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now it's analyzing, and it says a still life of Monday morning madness, unseen, unspoken. The plant leans in for gossip, while outside bricks play their own silent film. The mushroom lamp, pretending it's in Wonderland. Someone should tell it we're out of tea. Half a plush crocodile lurks, waiting for stories that will never catch their breath. The battle of breakfast, tangling with the sun, all wanting the best spot on this sill, and the man's shoulder offers its own quiet protest. The coffee's not kicking in fast enough. So this is not necessarily an interesting poem. It's maybe a bit all over the place, and I also asked it to sort of pick up on as many details as possible in the image. But sometimes when you compare poems like these, or maybe AI generated media assets of other types, like images or movies or sounds, and then you have a tendency to always compare them sort of one-to-one with what human beings are able to do. Like, is this at the level of a great poet, or is this at a level of a great painter? And I think that's a bit of a shame. I think that at least like computer art should be measured as computer art. And if you only compare it to what a human being is able to do, then I don't know, maybe you're underestimating both the human being and also the computer, because I think a computer is a different entity and it can do different stuff. And this is a different system that is able to sort of like create as many poems as I would like to, understand contexts from all sorts of stuff, or maybe misunderstand, and is not the same as what a human being is able to do. Not saying that this is necessarily a great one, but if I changed a line in my code, I could have it generate 1,000, which is something entirely different, or it could sort of work on its own. Yes. Okay. Let's close this one down and go maybe a year forward to 2021, where I made a project called Behind the Paywall. This was originally thought of for an exhibition in Belgium that had a theme around manipulation. It got canceled due to COVID, but I decided to do it anyways. And the idea came from me reading lots of articles online, or at least attempting to read articles online. During COVID, you're a lot online, but when you're online and you want to read articles, then if you don't have subscriptions, you often get sort of blocked by paywalls. And I don't know, sometimes I was at my computer all day and I was just clicking all of these links, and I didn't read a lot of articles. I just ended up behind paywalls. But in my mind, I think like maybe my mind thought that I knew something about the case. Like I had maybe read on a social media someone mentioning this article, then I read their opinion about it, and then I went there and then I read the headline and the byline, and then I don't know, I told myself that now I'm sort of informed, I sort of know what this article is about. So in a way, my mind, like from the texts that were available to me, from the stuff I was able to see, my mind just like made up the rest of it. And I thought, okay, what else here in 2021 is making up stuff based on a beginning of text? Well, that's large language models like GPT-2 and GPT-3. Before we had ChatGPT, where everything was in a chat interface and it became more of a conversation, then what these models were able to do, and behind the scenes, what they're still able to do, is that they're able to continue a text with likely tokens, next token, next token, next token. So I thought it would be interesting to feed them with the tokens that are available in front of the paywall, and then have them dream up what would be behind the paywall. So what I did was that I fine-tuned a version of GPT-2 with existing New York Times articles, and then made it into a browser plugin so you could continue any article on New York Times that was behind a paywall. And of course, it's a bit absurd. Like you're not producing facts, you're producing fiction. And it's wrong. All of the stuff or a lot of it is wrong. But what I found interesting was that it was sort of the patterns in how it was wrong. It was systematically wrong because it was trained on a specific data set. I fine-tuned it to be good at writing in the style of New York Times, but it also meant that I found some somewhat arbitrary data set with like a start date and an ending date on Kaggle that has a lot of data sets. And it meant that like it had no knowledge of COVID. That was before the cutoff of the training data. It thought that Joe Biden was still Obama's vice president. It had all of these sort of historical things that it just continued all conversations, or sorry, all articles with. So it was wrong, but it was historically consistently wrong with certain patterns that were consistent. A year later, I was still sort of interested in the idea of like miscommunication, misinformation, and having sort of large language models write stuff that would populate the internet. So I thought it would be interesting to maybe make an installation where people could create their own fake news and create maybe not news, but at least fake texts, and create them in a super personalized way. And what is more personal than your face? and what is something that large language models are heavily trained on? Well, yeah, so face and then Wikipedia. Of course we don't know what the current large language models are trained on, but GPT-2 and GPT-3, it's well known that they were trained on the at least the English corpus of Wikipedia back then. So I made this installation where everyone could get their own fake Wikipedia page just based on their face. And maybe I could try to demo that as well now. Right now I have it on a public URL. I'll close that down a bit later. But the idea is that you can just put up your name. So my name is Andreas Refsgaard, and even though there is stuff about me online, I'm not so famous. So I think I can sort of convince it that I'm famous for all sorts of weird stuff. So you put in your name, then you describe what you would like to be famous for. So right now I'm in my own home, and I'm doing this Zoom presentation in my sweatpants. So maybe what if I was like really famous for only doing that, like doing Zoom presentations while wearing sweatpants. That's a bit of a weird thing to be famous for, but I don't know. Let's see what happens. And then obviously you need the face. So I'm gonna take a picture. And based on the face, it will try to estimate my age, my gender, and also my facial expression. And then it will try to generate an image of me somehow related to being famous for the sweatpants thing. I don't know. Yeah, these are sweatpants, I guess. And then also this full Wikipedia article where it says I'm born this date in Copenhagen. I didn't tell it anything about where I'm from, but it can sort of guess that I might be Danish based on my last name. I wasn't born in Copenhagen. And then it just writes this article about my fame, and we don't need to read all of it, but I'm like, my father is actually called this, so that's interesting. My mother's not called this. And I attended business school, majored in business communication, which maybe explains this suit. I have a suit, but I have sweatpants. So like, I guess I'm like formal upstairs and informal downstairs. And then the rise to prominence. During COVID, there was this massive shift towards remote work, and many professionals were suddenly thrust into the world of virtual meetings. And it had a lot of challenges, technical and social. And in this environment, I decided to embrace the new norms while simultaneously subverting traditional expectations of professional attire. So I was on this high-profile Zoom meeting for a marketing campaign for this international firm, Global Tech. That's a very generic name. And I was the only participant that appeared in sweatpants. So my upper half was dressed in this tailor blazer, and there was this striking contrast between my pants. And then my presentation was good nonetheless, and it got a lot of attention, and I started collaborating with Zoom and Slack, where I discussed effective remote work strategies, and I made I don't know, a groundbreaking series with a Danish entrepreneur, the Sweatpants Revolution. Blah, 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 blah. Made a TEDx talk. Okay, and if you don't like your fame, you can always, with this system, you can always try again. Okay, I'll stop that now. Okay, so the next year, I had an intern. His name is Frederik Lauenborg, and we were both super interested in memes. We would share a lot of memes when we worked together. And I then wanted to sort of make a remix of the project I did a bit earlier, the project related to these poems, because maybe the poem you saw before, it wasn't that great. And what if you could like make the text even shorter and maybe a bit more snappy and fun? So we essentially just like swapped out a prompt in this Better Poems About Things project, and then decided that what if you could have users or people just create memes from images, extremely simple. In the beginning, when we did this, there were no models, or no great models at least, that were able to sort of do it with a single, like both process what was in an image and write something fun about it. So we chained together an algorithm called Blip that could describe in a full sentence what an image was about. And then we fed that to GPT-4 over API and told it to then generate a fun caption for it. Now, models like 4.0 or models from Gemini or open source models from Llama or Mistral, they can also do the same. And I'm experimenting a bit. I'm interested in maybe shifting it towards something more open source. But what you'll see now, and what you'll also try now, is actually the system using GPT-4.0. And I'm just going to demonstrate it real quick. Oops. So if I can just exit this. So MemeCamp, it looks like this when you go to the site, and I'll share a link in a second and a QR code. You can hit donate if you want to help us cover costs, because it was like, it went extremely, like wildly viral in the beginning, especially in China and India. So we had to limit the amount of memes people could generate per hour to 10. And if you're all in the same building and you're on the same Wi-Fi, then try to maybe go off Wi-Fi. Then you can generate 10 per person and not 10 per room. And then, yeah, when you go there, there's this donate thing. You don't need to donate, and donating doesn't give you more memes, so don't donate right now. And then it's quite simple. You can either upload images or you can use the camera. And now I'm in my kids' room, so I don't know, what if it was this weird bird that gave the presentation instead of me? Let's try to see what the system thinks of that. And again, there's no guarantee that this will be fun, but let's try. When you're pretending to listen on Zoom, but actually zoning out, so maybe it thinks that this bird is not like paying that much attention. And you can sort of like make memes about anything. Like you can even challenge it in weird ways, like what would be fun about a picture of the ceiling? Yeah, and then it tries to generate something funny. No guarantees. Okay, so I think maybe I'll give you like a moment to generate a meme or two. You can go directly to memecamp.io, or you can scan this QR code. And if you're advanced, then in the lower left corner, you can set it to other languages. You can also set the context, so it can try to generate memes not only from the content of the image, but also from something you decide, like conference or design, or I don't know, Schwäbisch Gmünd. And then it will try to sort of force that into the meme. It's not always that successful, but it can be an interesting way to steer meme generation. Yes. Okay. Memecamp.io. So I have 2 projects left, and I'm not sure how we are on time. So if there's anything, then just shout or put it in the chat. But I think maybe it works out with the two projects more. So this next one, it's called My Browse, and the idea is that we're sort of moving towards a more and more personalized experience of the web, where things are sort of tailored towards specific users, and where where people don't necessarily see the same content anymore, sort of like filter bubbles. And I wanted to create a bit of an extreme filter bubble, but in a positive way. So things are way more sort of centered around me, which I like. I like if I'm on the news or if I get attention. So what I did was that I created a browser extension, and you all know browser extensions from things that, for instance, detect ads and then remove those ads from your browser window. What I did was that I tried to detect in images, are there any faces in images? And if they are there, can I then swap them with myself? And currently it's broken. It was a bit harder to sort of do consistently on a lot of pages than compared to what I thought. And then we had a kid more, so it's a bit tricky. But what you see now is a version where it did work for a period on a Danish news site called Politiken, one of the big papers in Denmark. And then all faces are then swapped with me, and also all first names are also swapped with me. And that makes the whole reading experience way more interesting. Like, it's all relevant to me. Now I win 2 Golden Globes, for instance, and I'm going to be the new king of Denmark. And things I didn't care about before, all of a sudden I care about them because they relate to me. And all of these swaps, face swaps, they happen with one reference image. So it's the same reference image that is able to generate all of these. They happen within a few seconds, and they cost a fraction of a euro cent. Okay, the final project, and then maybe we have time for a question, is a project called Photo Booth of the Past, which is a bit of the same, I guess, from a technical point of view, but more interactive and more and also a physical thing. So it's made in collaboration with a Danish archive in a town called Kolding. It's roughly the same size as Schwäbisch Gmünd. And this archive, they have a lot of gorgeous, really, really great photos from people that lived in that area for the last 200 years. And then we wanted to sort of showcase a lot of these great photos, but also give people a chance to somehow travel in time and see themselves as though they were photographed in a different age. And it was a quite simple setup where people could take pictures of themselves, and then they would see themselves both on a computer but also on this projection, where it would then make a larger and larger collection of real people in the present, but sort of traveled back in time as though they lived in a different time. Let's have a look.
Det bliver jeg sgu.
Ej, hvor er det godt. Ej, hvor... Så kommer jeres baby til at se ud. Ved hvad? Jeg ligner simpelthen min mor. Nej. Ej, hvor er det sjovt.
Det ligner Svend Auken.
Ja, det er meget godt lavet. Det er meget sjovt at lave de der grimasser, det er sjovere.
Hold kæft, lov mig, jeg ikke skal have børn med dig.
Jeg ser det på den nye side, i det mindste har konen hår.
Nogle søde ører.
Yes. Okay, that was my talk. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks to my kid for not waking up and screaming. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Many thanks for the wonderful talk. Super nice. I'm sure there are questions. We are running a bit late, but still. Questions. Don't be shy. Yes, okay. Could you come in front so that Andreas, yeah, please, that Andreas can actually see you. So the camera is, the setup is like the camera is here and here's Andreas.
Hi, Andreas.
Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to ask with this fake information, is it possible for the fake information that's generated to then train other AIs or that it'll become truth eventually? It'll be given as truth.
Yeah. So I love that question, and that's a concern that a lot of people have, and I like that people then start thinking about those things. Not saying that you didn't think about it before, but for some at least, then I've had the experience, and I had this question a couple of times where people start wondering about it. From a technical point of view, then if you can count on what the documentation and the guidelines and the data handling of what OpenAI says, then they do not train when I on either inputs or outputs when I do it in this way. But of course, if I then posted it online, then other algorithms might be able to train on it. And there could also be other ways of like opting in on using your API stuff to train. But in the current state of it, no, this does not feed the machine that created it.
Thank you. Question. No question. There's one. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Not so much a question, but maybe a remark. I think it's so powerful how you're using humor and this like super lightweight approach that has lots and lots of layers underneath. And, you know, we've just spent 1.5 days hearing a lot about how our intentional use and our perception of working creatively with AI needs to change. And it's a shame that you can't be in the room because I think it would be fantastic to find ways to connect that super accessible artistic level that employs humor and fun and playfulness with some of the things that we've heard in the last 1.5 days and find ways to use that as an access gate. So thank you so much for sharing your work. Super inspiring.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I think I don't want to force this. You know, we had 1.5 very intense days and it's lunch break time. So yeah. Okay. Many thanks. Andreas, please, a round of applause. Sorry. Thank you, Andreas. Hope to catch up soon with you. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye-bye.